Have you ever thought about what your life will feel like at 80? And not just how long you'll live, but how well you live? Or do you just avoid thinking altogether about aging because it kind of scares you? Well, then this episode is for you. Now, before I start, if you're watching on YouTube, you're probably like, where did the blonde go? I decided I want to grow out my roots, and it's really hard to do that when you're all blonde and you're naturally a brunette. So I went to the hairdresser. I thought she was just going to kind of give me some lowlights, and instead she just covered my whole hair. I'm one of these people, kind of freaks of nature, that doesn't have gray hair yet. I'm 56, and honestly, I'm not sure exactly what it is because my mom, my dad, my brother, they all had gray hair at my age. But it is what it is. I'm unable to get to a hairdresser. I'm in Portugal. I haven't found my ideal person. So I always get very frustrated with having these black roots and this blonde hair. So I decided, let's see how long I can take it. Let's see. And when you start seeing me go blonde, then you know that, okay, she's getting some gray hairs. So, okay. We're going to talk about health span, lifespan, and peak span and explain those things. But I really want to dive into something first and explain to you a couple of things and have you do a little exercise, because I would love to see how you react and what it brings you, because it's also going to help you move the needle in these directions, health span, lifespan, and peak span. Okay. So what I want you to do, you can even pause this for a moment or just make sure you do it at the end of this video, is you use your AI tool, whether it's ChatGPT or something else, upload a photo of as you are today and ask it to create your 80-year-old self. It blew my mind when I did this exercise. Actually, at first, it made me a little too young. I didn't have enough wrinkles. And I just said, look, you got to make a little bit older. I want to see myself as an 80-year-old. And I was blown away. It was kind to me. My hair was all done, but I was clearly 80 years old and I had tears in my eyes. I couldn't believe it. I felt like, oh my goodness, I met her. There she is. And that's the woman I'm always talking about that I'm protecting. I always talk about got to protect your future self. And menopause is a perfect opportunity to start protecting her, to start creating your 80-year-old self. Because disease doesn't start in your 70s and 80s. It starts decades before. And now we have a really good shot at protecting our future selves, or at least lowering the risk of certain diseases of aging. So when I did this exercise, I'll put the photo here. I'll ask my editor to post the photo of my 80-year-old self. You can see what she looks like. The next thing I did, I was so fascinated. I told a couple of friends to do this, and they were horrified. There's no way. I don't want to see myself as an 80-year-old. I'll look horrible. Or they had all these negative ideas. And so I was trying to figure it out. And partly is because we all are ageist to a certain extent. Ageism is rampant. Ageism is the prejudice, the stereotype discrimination of people based on their age. And the research has shown we all, to some extent, are. Some less and some more. In Asia, it does tend to be people have less ageist ideas or are just less ageist in themselves, but they are still, believe me, I've interviewed so many women on the street and so talked to so many people in Asia, and they are ageist. The hardest thing is that when we are ageist towards our own self, when we start accepting things as purely age, when it may or may not be. If we accept that we're going to start shuffling, we're going to start having a hunched over back, that we're going to be slow, that we're tired, that we have some pains, you can accept it if you want. But if it's because of ageism, it's not because of age, then you can do something about it. You can relieve the pain. You can find out why you so depleted of energy, because we all know those 80-year-olds who've got plenty of energy and walk really fast. Okay. I have one in Hong Kong. Her name is Sheila. I couldn't keep up with her when she was walking. She's amazing. That's part of the explanation. And it's really sad because I do see all over social media or in a newsletter or through friends or just talking with people that people are horrified to turn 50 or horrified to go through menopause or horrified to turn 60. Oh my God, I'm 58. Oh my gosh, I'm going to soon be whatever number. And there's emojis and sad emojis. And I want to turn that frown upside down. I want to talk about all the amazing things that can happen during this transition. And the reason that some people are sad is because of time is going. But I think sometimes when we look at time as being short, we know time flies, right? By the time you get to midlife where we're at, we're like, where did all the time go? I was 25 just yesterday. But imagine yourself at 80 going, oh my God, I was so beautiful at 50, or I had so much energy at 52, or whatever it is. Like, you are going to go look back, and hopefully you will look back. Hopefully you will be able to look back, because that was part of the emotion that I had when I saw my 80-year-old self. I was like, oh my gosh, maybe I'll make it. My mother died at 57. I was only 23. She had breast cancer. She was diagnosed at 55. I'm 56, and I get my breast screenings. And every time I get a breast screening, I'm like, thank God, I'm relieved. I feel like I got another year. And as I get closer to that 57, I think maybe I'll make it. Maybe. And anyone who has a parent or somebody they love, their grandma, whoever, who died at a certain age, or maybe obviously too young, you are hanging on to that number. Like, I made it to 42, or I made it to 56, or whatever that number is. And you understand it, you get it. Now, if you have your parents who are still around and hopefully they're in good condition, you don't quite get it. And I think that's why I get so excited about meeting this 80-year-old. I don't know what my mom would look like at 80. And I feel like I met her, but at least that's me. So I'm just trying to figure out why the negativity. And I do get it. I do understand it, but I would love to shift that around and just make these years the most amazing years of your life. And as we are protecting our future selves along the way, we're going to feel amazing or look amazing or feel good in our body. We should, and we can. So it's not about just chasing this one goal of, oh, okay, when I get to 80, I'm going to be like this. No, along the way, you're going to feel great if we try to put certain things in place. And there are no guarantees that we won't die early or that we don't get disease, or like, life is life. Maybe you get hit by a car tomorrow. I don't know. But if we put certain things in place, we can at least lower the risk and lower the chances, put the probabilities in our favor. And that's what I've been doing for the last 33 years since my mom died. So along the way, I've been pretty happy. Like, things have been pretty good. And sometimes the shit hits the fan, even when you're doing all the right things, like me and my hip osteoarthritis. Like, what the hell that? Like, how did that happen? Right? And there's I've got just many other episodes on that. So if you want to dive into that, the whys, then I'll tell you why. But sometimes life just throws you lemons like that. But thank goodness I was able to do certain things for the last several decades to set me up. Maybe I would have had those hip surgeries a lot earlier in life. Maybe I wouldn't have recovered so quickly if I didn't do all these things in place. I don't know. We never know. All we can do is try our best. So let's get back to health span, lifespan, and peak span, right? And probably like, when is she going to shut up and start talking about all those other things? But I wanted to set this up because I really want you to take menopause as this amazing opportunity that we have to protect our future self. And it's not only about lifespan. Okay. So lifespan is the number of candles you have in your cake, right? It's the number that you have on your driver's license. It's the number of times you've gone around the sun. And most of us in the Western world tend to live in our 80s. Okay. And beyond now. And modern medicine has really helped us do that. It's amazing. We're so lucky. If I had to live with hip osteoarthritis, I'd be like, kill me now. I don't want to live a long life because it's too painful. But thanks to modern medicine, I've got a whole new life. Now, health span, maybe you've heard of health span, but every time I talk about health span, most people don't know what it is. And the number of years that you live free of disease, or at least free of major disease and full of vitality. That's the way I always describe it. And the problem is that there's a big gap between lifespan and health span. Health span usually lasts until our 50s, maybe 60, early 60s. And that's when we start to have certain diseases. We need to take blood pressure medication or cholesterol medication and insulin, whatever disease that we have. So we're living longer. Lifespan is long, but the health span is not so long. And so what I've been talking about for decades now is like, how can we extend health span? How can I make that period of disease before I die just really short? I mean, assuming you died of some disease, right? I want it to be as short as possible, as painless as possible. But right now, people are living 20, 30 years with disease and problems and going to the doctors and medical conditions. And menopause seems to accelerate these things as well. So that's health span. Now there's another thing called peak span. And I learned about this from a research paper, it was an article. I'll have a link to that article. It's called Peak Span: Defining, Quantifying, and Extending the Boundaries of Peak Productive Lifespan. It was really interesting because I'd never heard of peak span before. It's a new concept. And if you read the paper, you'll know exactly what it is. But in a nutshell, it's the age during which someone can maintain at least 90% of their peak functional performance in a certain physiological or cognitive domain. I will ask my editor to put the image. There's a little graph that they had. It's pretty cool, where they have all the spans of the peak spans of different organ systems, or your immune system, your reproductive system, your cognitive system. So we have crystallized intelligence, and we have, oh my gosh, it's crystallized and fluid. Oh my gosh. My fluid intelligence is a little short. So we have crystallized and fluid, and you'll see those different graphs, and it's pretty cool. The problem is that we peak usually in our 20s and 30s. So it's actually pretty short relative to the total lifespan. So what's happening now is that we're not just alive and we're not just like free of disease, but we're actually functioning at or near our best when we have a healthy peak span, or this is happening in our 20s and 30s. Most of us, if this happens in our 20s, if we peak in our 20s and 30s, most of us are going to spend the majority of our lives, our adult lives, healthy but declined. And in the paper, they call this like healthy but declined state. And healthy, let's put this in air quotes, because people listening here, you're like optimizing your health span. I mean, you're optimizing your health, and you're all about really in the optimal zone, really not just healthy. So when we say healthy, just like generally healthy is what we're talking about, but you're in a declined state, healthy but declined. So just sit with that for a second. So you have no diagnosis, there's no disease. You're just operating at about 60, 70% of what our body's actually capable of. So it's okay. And that's fine. And if you're happy with it, okay. And most people do accept this as just normal aging. But the researchers in this paper, they were arguing that extending peak span is where longevity science actually needs to go. And I think it's a really interesting space, peak span. So if we can move the needle, and you can, like if you've seen some of these x-rays of people, of a dissected muscle of a 70-year-old person who's been pretty active and exercising all their lives. And you'll see somebody who's maybe 50 and is not exercising, not doing anything. And there's not much muscle there. There's a lot of fat, and you can see a lot of muscle in that 70-year-old. So that person's musculoskeletal system, let's say, is not peaking at 20 or 30, or if it is, you'd imagine that curve is going high and actually staying pretty high. Maybe it's declining, but it's at 90% of what was possible. And I think that's super interesting. So when we have all these different organ systems and we may get sick from metabolic dysfunction or osteoporosis or your heart disease, that's where you have all these little lines and you see these graphs. Well, let's try to move the needle with that. So menopause is this perfect opportunity to change that graph of that peak span. Maybe we do peak in our 20s and 30s, but we want to extend that line. We don't want it to just have this steep decline, which is what's happening. We want to keep it as high as possible. And we can. We've seen some of the information already. We've seen people who are living their lives like that. We know it's possible. What we can do in menopause is this perfect opportunity to change that trajectory of our future selves. It's going to determine the next 20, 30 years. It'll determine what your 80-year-old self will look like. And that's pretty amazing. Now, it's not easy, no, but if it's important to you, you're going to find a way, right, to be in the best condition as long as possible. Now, there are different organ systems, right, that in this study, there's your reproductive system, and like no matter how healthy you try to be, your ovaries are not going to spit out estrogen anymore. And this is where we have accelerated aging during this transition of menopause. Osteoporosis just speeds up with more bone loss than bone building. And sarcopenia is another thing that's coming soon, where we're starting to lose muscle. We're getting more fat and we're losing more muscles. This is why we're always talking about muscle as a longevity organ, right? We need to keep working on that muscle if you want to be independent and if you want to be strong and if you want to protect your 80-year-old self, carrying your own groceries, opening your own jars and doing your own things. And everybody's goals are different. So you do you. And then we also have our cognitive function, right? We have estrogen receptors in our brain. And without estrogen, a lot of these things happen. Of course, men can have cognitive decline as well, but women have more cases of Alzheimer's than men. And we're always trying to figure out, well, wonder why. Loss of our estrogen has something to do with it. And there's many other functions in the body that actually have this steep decline during menopause, but it's not all doom and gloom. Like we have hormone replacement therapy. That's one way to sort of fill up the reserves if you're open to it. But if you can't do it, or if you don't want to do it, that's fine too. There's so many other things that we can do, right? There are super agers out there. Those are the people who are rocking it in their 80s and 90s, and they're not on any hormones, right? They've done it. Now, maybe they have exceptional genes. Maybe they're actually doing other things. Hormones could be super supportive, but I don't want the person who decided not to take it feel left out. So all of these things we can do, we can work on during this menopause transition. And I think they're really important. And that's for you to decide if you're going to do that or not. Now, I definitely encourage you, if you don't want anybody to be white knuckling their way through menopause. Honestly, you don't have to suffer. Hormones is just one piece of the puzzle, but whether or not your hormones, you have to do a lot of other things too. Actually, the last solo episode I did was all about the non-hormonal things that we can do and probably should be doing, whether you're on hormones or not. So I'll have a link to that in the episode, in this show notes as well. So anyways, this is the best opportunity of our lives is menopause, and biohacking menopause is actually where it's at. This is where we test, measure, and assess. This is where we understand we're all bio-individual. We respond to different things differently, or respond to the same things absolutely differently. This is why I love this piece, because you're taking responsibility of your own health. You're knowing your numbers. So let's go back to that exercise. I really want you to upload that photo, create your 80-year-old self. Please get back to me. Comment if you're on YouTube, or make a comment that you did it. What did it feel like for you? Be honest. You were horrified, or you loved it, or find it motivating or not. I would love more feedback on this exercise and try to find out how people are responding. But it's okay. No matter what you feel, it's okay, right? And on the other side of that fear, there's actually something really powerful. You can use that fear to use it as motivation. So every time, once you have that person, you see her, you see your 80-year-old self, you'll think about her every time you make a decision. Not that we make perfect decisions all the time, but you have somebody there motivating you, rooting for you. She's cheering you on because she wants you to make the right choices for her today, because what you do today will determine how she turns out later on. So after every meal choice you make, or every workout that you do, or every hour of sleep that you get, you are writing her story. And I want you to hold her in your heart. I want you to think of her every time you make those choices, because aging is a gift. It's a gift that not everybody gets to have. And my mom didn't get it. I'm 56. I'm here, hopefully for a long time. But you can improve your lifespan, your health span, and your peak span. And you get to reap all the benefits along the way. It's not just making this one goal. The whole journey should really feel much better and more at ease as you're aging, not just when you get to 80. So let's get to work. If you need any help, we can always join us in the Biohacking Menopause membership group. This is a women's only support group. We would love to have you there. We put in things in place. We have challenges, we have workshops, we have master classes, and they're women cheering each other on. They're amazing. I love it. I love it because it's not just me and my opinion. It's an opinion of many other women out there. So please go to the show notes or go to biohacking-menopause.mn.co, or just go to my website, hackmyage.com. You're going to see how to enter that group. It is a place that's safe, that's intimate, that we get to talk to all my podcast guests who are all invited. If you like my podcast guests, then ask your own questions. So have a good day, good night, good morning, wherever you're at. Thanks so much for listening, this short episode, and I will see you next time.